Welcome back to another episode of the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast. Joe DeLeone, Ryan Roberts with Ryan Roberts that is in Texas right now at the All-American game. We're going to be breaking down two very talented linebackers in this class. One, I think, significantly more talented than the other and is going to get drafted a lot higher than the other. But nonetheless, we're going to be doing a scouting report for Trenton Simpson and Daiyan Henley on today's episode. Ryan, before we get into it and before I do the read, how is Texas, brother? How's the All-American game for the top high school prospects going so far?
Joe, I would say this, man. These kids are just getting bigger and more athletic every damn year. It is absurd, man. I'm seriously, man. I'm watching these defensive linemen like Keon Keeley's out here, dude. Like that dude is 6'6" with vines and has no bad weight on him. Like it's just silly. Brandon Vernon from Notre Dame is 275 pounds and he has a six-pack. Like, what am I watching right now where, like, these dudes are just made on a different planet? If we think we're watching some freaks in the 2023 NFL draft class, man, just wait until, like, 2027 when these guys are coming out. It's just I just get bigger and stronger and faster every single year. It's absurd.
You sent me a picture of Brendan Vernon, and I can assure you the guys in my recruiting class back in 2016, there were not a lot of guys that were built like Brendan Vernon, man. And hey, man, this is a draft show. When we get to their class and we talk about those dudes, I am willing to bet we are going to be losing our mind over some of those guys that you're in person to see. What would that be, 2027? We'd be watching those guys?
Yeah, because they'll be freshmen in 2023, so 2023, 2024. Well, they might be 2025 kids, I guess, technically.
Oh, my God, that hurts my head.
No. They would be 20 – no. So they would be the following year, so it'd be 2026 kids. Third-year players would be 2026. I'll also say this, Joe. Outside of seeing some great football players, I've already had some tremendous barbecue so far. Going to get some tacos here very soon because San Antonio obviously is very well known for tacos. So going to do some tacos tonight. It's getting some good food so far, man. There's a Ruth Chris Steakhouse in my hotel, but it's on Brian's time, so I don't know if that would be a good idea.
Well, you're there for you got to get one steak in, even if it's on your own your own paycheck.
I feel like if I'm in Texas though, I probably should.
Don't go to Ruth Chris.
Go to a nicer steakhouse, where they have like smoked sirloin and such. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Send me pictures when you go, but we're transitioning our focus back here to the 2023 class. We're going to break down these two linebackers. If you're watching on video, go check out both Scouting Report episodes. If you're listening on audio, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave us a review. I just want to remind you folks about BetOnline, which remains your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports, especially with the national championship coming up. Make sure you're betting on that. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite leagues and events. Head to BetOnline to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ryan, I want to start with Daiyan Henley from Washington State first because I think Trenton Simpson is going to be a little bit more of an exciting discussion, but Daiyan Henley serves a purpose for wherever he's going to end up. Big, long frame. First thing that stood out to me is how he is built as a linebacker. If you're putting a middle linebacker, you're putting him together in a lab, Daiyan Henley is exactly the guy that you're going to be piecing together the way that this guy is structured. Fantastic build. Now, athletically, wasn't super impressed. I think he moves fine for what his role is going to be, which is plopping him right in the middle of your defense. Hopefully he doesn't need to run much further than the inside the box, but still a strong player. I had some more negatives than you did, but I want to get into your thoughts on him before maybe I tear him down a little bit with some of the issues I saw with him on film.
Yeah, man, I think we both see similar. I think we both see similar limitations with Daiyan Henley. I think you said it perfectly, Joe. I mean, first and foremost, kid just put together a tremendous single season for Washington State because he was a Nevada transfer originally. He was pretty productive at Nevada, but he really put it together this year from a production perspective. Had a fantastic season for a Washington State defense that was pretty underrated, man. They did a pretty nice job, honestly, this past year. So he was kind of that. He was the middle guy of that group. He was the heart and soul of Washington State's defense. But I completely understand the negatives that are with him, right? He is a Mike only at the next level, which isn't like it's not a a death sentence, right? But in the game that how it has evolved today with the implementation of manufacturing space, you would rather have a guy that was a little more interchangeable than a Daiyan Henley, right? He's not ever going to be a guy that I think is going to be a plus player in coverage. But what I love about Daiyan is that I think that he has very good instincts at the position. I think he's a physical downhill player and very explosive in short areas. I don't think he changes direction incredibly well, but I think when he sees it, gets downhill, he's got a powerful lower half. He can deliver some punishment when he comes to balance as a tackler, and he's a really good interior blitzer. So he might not be a 3-down player at the next level if he hits his peak, but I do think that there's a world where he could be a starting caliber Mike on early downs and be a player that against the run is plus, can give you some interior blitz opportunities. But I do think that there are definitely some limitations as far as his ability against the pass from a traditional pass coverage perspective.
So the reason why I think his major positives are his frame and what you're talking about, the physicality that he brings to the table as a linebacker, like that stuff's great. The issues that came into play for me, and we were talking about how somebody else that we respect their opinion and we talk to frequently, you talk to much more than I do, that is also a scout, kind of saw the same sentiment that I did, where it felt as if he was guessing at times when he was making plays and he was trying to find the football. Those guesses did work, and he did have some successful games where he had high tackle totals and he had decent performances. But on the flip side of things, I saw a number of plays in the games that I watched where he was guessing and he was flowing the wrong way to the football. And to me, that's a bit of an issue. The instincts are inconsistent. Maybe it's not always a problem, but to me, I see inconsistencies with those instincts, why I don't think I'm as high on him, and I don't think he has as much starter upside unless maybe he corrects those inconsistencies with his vision, with his instincts. That's a completely different story. I also had some problems with his inability to sometimes get off of blocks. There were a couple times where somebody would pick him up and he was out of the play. Now, I need to see a little bit more for Mike Backer if I'm going to start him on a consistent basis, if he's going to be able to work off those blocks. That's just something, maybe it was the games that I watched that he was going up against some better offensive linemen, but those things popped up to me as well.
I get that. I would say that he, which it's kind of weird, right? Because he does have freakishly long arms for his size. I mean, he's only about 6'1", 230 pounds, but he's got 33.25-inch arms, which is a healthy number for his size, and a 6'7" wingspan. But I agree. I don't think that he takes on blocks incredibly well. I think he's more of a block slipper than a guy that traditionally is a stacker and be able to get off of blocks. I think he more re-diagnoses and then hits gaps more than a guy that's going to take a ton of contact at the point of attack. I think he can do it, but I think that he trusts his eyes and then his explosiveness more than he does from a physicality perspective. But when he gets downhill, Joe, this dude's a hitter, man. And we need to also say there's a big opportunity for him from a stay power perspective to potentially be a special teamer on the next level, right? So I'm talking about the peak of him. I think could be a starting level player in a specific role. But there is a reality where Daiyan Henley is nothing more than just a good backup middle linebacker, but he also has special teams experience and special teams upside as well. So the ability to cover kicks, cover punts, and then do the dirty work inside as an inside linebacker, whether it is as a spot starter or a guy that's more of a rotational player. I think the thing that I really like about Daiyan Henley is I think that he has upside to make a roster consistently. Like, I think this kid's just going to be on a roster. And I think that the NFL is going to like him a decent amount. I mean, he's gotten invited to the Senior Bowl already. I think scouts are pretty high as far as what he was able to accomplish his 1 year at Washington State. But I think that we can be excited about a player and still understand, and I agree with you on this sentiment, there are definitely some deficiencies, right? And there's a cap to his upside. This kid's not going to be a Pro Bowl middle linebacker. Like, that's not his upside. But as a guy that could potentially play a decent amount inside and give you upside as a special teamer, I think that there's a sticking point to a guy like a Daiyan Henley.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started taping. The special teams aspect of it for me with any linebacker, you show that capability and the willingness and all the things that he showed on tape, that you'll be a good special teamer is always going to be valuable. With that being said, how do you see his valuation? Where do you see him getting drafted?
Well, because there's limitations with him from a play style perspective, right? He's a Mike only. He's not going to be an interchangeable player that can play all over on the second level. And he's a little bit of an older player, right? He's a 6th-year senior this year. So he's battling age and he's battling alignment dependability on the next level. So I think that he's a early to mid day 3 football player, right? Like 4th round, I start thinking about it. 5th round, be good with it. 6th round, be elated with it, right? Like that's what I see. Definitely draftable, but I agree that there's definitely limitations. No doubt.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm actually not that far off from you. So it's funny that we were talking ahead of time and I'm saying like, I'm not as big of a fan as you are, but that's actually where I projected him. I said mid to late day 3 pick. This is still a draftable player, absolutely a draftable player. But I think all those limitations that we discussed are why I'm not willing to go any higher than that. It's funny how when we have these conversations where like I'm down on a guy and you're up on a guy, but you being up on a guy is mid to late day 3, and me being down on a guy is mid to late day 3. But it seems like we're on the same page.
Joe, we're trying to find value in different spots, right? Like that's the biggest thing for me. I feel like you're evaluating in a vacuum, right? Like if a guy's not a first rounder, I hate him. I don't like him, right? But for me, I'm like, hey, that guy might only be a day 3 pick, but I think he has this type of upside for this specific role. Like that's kind of the fun part of evaluation, is that you can find those gems, you can find the role players, you can find that specific niche to making a roster. So I think we're just looking at it from a little bit of a different perspective. That's all.